Before Wimbledon coverage ramps up, I want to talk about this Roger Federer doc that released on Amazon Prime a few days ago. Federer, 12 Final Days, that documents the 12-day journey between his announcement on social media that told fans around the world that he'd be retiring and the Laver Cup, his final doubles match alongside Rafael Nadal. So first of all, before I watched the doc, I listened to a podcast about the creation of the doc that really enhanced my experience of viewing. So I want to kind of share with you what I learned in the documentary about how the doc was created. Because again, it made me enjoy it more, I felt. And it's super interesting and unconventional. Roger made the decision that he was going to announce his retirement a few days before the actual video ended up being released. And there was a discussion between him and Tony Godsick and whoever else. They basically decided this is a really major moment in our lives. We should probably have someone document it. Like, let's bring a videographer in just to film this so we have it. Have it for who? Have it for us, friends, family, something that we can keep. It's the same reason why you film your wedding. Something super significant is going to happen. We want to have this. So if you're Roger Federer, you're able to enlist a really great, renowned videographer in order to do such task. And he met a man named Asif Kapadia through some Vogue content that he did. So he invited Asif, or asked Asif, to film him. Let's document this. Asif did that. Asif afterwards showed Roger the footage. This is what we did. You like it? Roger liked it so much that he said, you know, Asif, if this leaked tomorrow, I wouldn't be upset. And a remark like that led to maybe some thinking about, okay, if you feel that way, Roger, maybe we should put this out for the world to see. But it wasn't a finished product. It wasn't a full-blown sports documentary, so they had to bring on someone else, and that man was Joe Sabia, who kind of brought it from high-tech home video to sports doc, did additional interviews, spliced in the B-roll, obviously was heavily involved in the editing process, and that is how Federer 12 Final Days came together. You kind of look at it in new light, knowing that. And that kind of brings me to why I thought this was so good. Three main reasons. First being access. Roger granted Asif, with his cameras, unbelievable access into private places. It wasn't just, we're going to film Roger at the event. It was, we're going to be in the car with Roger driving to and from the event. And then the way it was edited ended up being quite raw as well. Not a lot of heavy cuts. It's like, let's spend 2.5 minutes in the car with Roger as he tries to process this monumental moment in his life. Everybody says an athlete dies twice, once when they retire from sports and then the second time when they actually die. So the access was incredible, obviously, and talked about this kind of thing with like Breakpoint. So important to good sports documentary is that you actually get inside of it. And this did that. Maybe because Roger thought, heck, who cares? Nobody's ever going to see this. Second reason, it was awesome. It had a focus. It wasn't the Roger Federer career documentary, and it was so much better for it. It did not do the, okay, let's do Roger's childhood, and here's what he was like as a teenager, and this was his development, and then he moved to this academy in Switzerland, and then he went pro, and these were the struggles he had when he first went pro. Then he beat Pete Sampras, Wimbledon 2001, and then, it took him a couple years to win his first major. Then he dominated through the 2000s. Then Nadal came. He was good on clay. Djokovic came. That was hard. Okay, you get the point. They didn't do that. This was not the Federer career documentary. Someone is going to do that, and it will probably not be as good as this, because the fact that this documentary had such a narrow focus didn't take away from the fact that you felt Roger's impact. You felt the significance of his entire career, because only someone who had the impact of Roger would have created an environment like the environment that was created for Roger at Laver Cup. His gravity, the gravity of him stepping away from the game was felt in full force. And that was a statement enough to make up for the fact that it didn't really get into the rest of Roger Federer's career. With the very important exception, and this is reason number 3 why it was good, with the exception of how Federer's career was intertwined with his greatest rivals. The third reason I thought this was so good was because it wasn't the Roger Federer show. It wasn't just about Roger, and not even close. They focused heavily on Roger's relationship with Novak and Rafa and Andy and even Bjorn Borg. And these were some of the best parts of the doc, and also encapsulated what Laver Cup was all about. What made Federer's farewell so special, it was that all of these people were all together to send off Roger. And at the end of the day, it's this big kind of living organism that is the big 3 and the big 4, and they, without each other, they're kind of incomplete. And the parts of the documentary where Roger was talking about what his rivals meant to him and vice versa were some of the strongest parts of the entire thing. There was also that classic nostalgia hit, that nostalgia high that sports documentaries usually offer. And for that, yes, there was some old Federer footage, which I thought was kind of classily curated, where, you saw a lot of fun highlights of Federer playing. But the main part of it was just reliving that Laver Cup experience. And it kind of confirmed for me the fact that Federer just nailed this as well as you can with, a knee injury that was ultimately career-ending. Because in the moment watching Laver Cup, I thought, wow, this is emotional, this is hard, but it also feels right. It feels like the best thing for Roger. It feels like the best thing for the fans. And it felt like a satisfying ending. And getting this super insider intimate glimpse on what it really was, where brought us inside the locker room and showed us what Roger was thinking and feeling before and after, just confirmed for me the fact that Federer's retirement really did stick the landing, I will say. And he was so open and honest. Not only did he provide access, which I know was my first point here, he was also really genuine and honest about how he was feeling at all times. And while, yes, Roger throughout his career has always kind of said the right things, he has been somewhat, adverse to controversy and sometimes unopinionated. He's also very genuine about how he's feeling and how he acts. And it was also kind of fun to just watch Federer interact with people, because as effortless as he is on the court, like his footwork, smooth, beautiful, flowy, technique, same thing. I think Federer as a persona, Federer in the charisma category, is kind of at that same level, which is crazy to say. But just watch this documentary and how Roger's dealing with the people around him, his friends, his family, his colleagues, the media, and tell me I'm wrong. The other part of nostalgia, and I want to end on this by telling a bit of a story here, and it's a story I've never told. The reason I didn't tell it is because I never felt like there was a good time to tell it. I didn't want to make Roger Federer's retirement about me. It's the last thing I was ever going to do. And therefore, I just didn't tell this story. I'm not telling a story about myself as a result of Federer retiring. So I never told this story. I'll tell it now. When Federer sent the announcement that he was retiring, I was on air calling a tennis match on Tennis Channel. Now, before I explain what happens next, let me just say, when Tennis Channel is taking a match, they are not controlling the camera shots. In this case, it was a men's match, I'm pretty sure. I'm almost positive. So that would be the ATP. ATP Media cuts the camera shots. They're in charge of the visuals. Tennis Channel will put graphics and obviously commentary and other stuff, but not the camera shots. So I'm calling this match. I forget who it was between. And it might have been at the change of ends, but it might have even been between points. In fact, I'm certain it was between points. They show this fan in the stands. They start to do this slow zoom on a fan in the stands. Okay? And then I realize, well, the zoom isn't on the fan. The zoom is on the fan's hat. It is a Federer hat. Slow zoom. Closer and closer to the Federer hat. This shot lasts for about 15 seconds. An eternity in television. And I'm sitting there, I'm confused. I'm like, what kind of directing is this? And what am I supposed to say as we slowly zoom in on this Roger Federer hat? What is going on here? So I make this kind of mundane, lighthearted remark. I might have said like, Federer hat never goes out of style. Or no matter where you are, you see that hat at a tennis event. Like, I don't know what I said. I forget. But it must have just been something kind of innocent and lighthearted about the Federer hat, whatever I thought of at the moment. And then I probably let it sit silently and just waited for them to get off the shot. I'm like, what is happening here? Then we hit the change of ends, the commercial break. I normally check my phone at the change of ends. I don't really look at my phone while I'm calling the tennis. And then at the commercial, I check my phone and I see the news. And I go, oh, that's what the camera shot of the Federer hat was about. And they did that so that the tennis TV commentators could break the news to those watching live, which was now my job on Tennis Channel. We come back from break. I say, brace for impact. This is news that will shake the tennis world. I wanted to give a warning because it's not the kind of thing that you just dump on people without a warning. You got to say, are you sitting down? Because I got news. And I said, Roger Federer has announced on social media that he is retiring from the sport of tennis and the Laver Cup will be his last event. I actually don't have the footage. I wish I did, because it would be something that I would keep and I would want to have, but I don't have it and I'll never get it. In that moment, it was hard to continue to focus on the match that I was calling because I just was cycling through the Federer memories. The first live tennis match that I ever saw was Federer versus Del Potro at the 2009 U.S. Open. And boy, did I have a blast at that match. I mean, I was on cloud 9 and it led to many, many more trips to the U.S. Open. And sometimes it was watching Federer and sometimes Nadal and sometimes Djokovic. And just like any other young player with hopes and dreams, thinking that they have a future in the sport, I thought about Federer's backhand overhead. That's one of the shots that Roger used to hit that I always envied the most. And I worked on my backhand overhead. I wanted it to look as pretty as Roger's. But then at a certain point, I realized I should probably stop even making an effort. Or maybe I can try. But maybe I should give up hope that my backhand overhead is ever going to look as pretty as Roger Federer's. And maybe I should think of other ways to be involved in this sport that I love, other than playing it at the highest level. Maybe broadcasting. And there I was in that Tennis Channel booth as Roger Federer announced his retirement. It was a full circle moment for me. It made me think of how far I'd come. But the common thread was at every step of the way, Federer and the big four were there. So it was surreal. And this documentary, 12 Final Days, it made me think of that moment. And I'm sure it will spark memories for all of you. I highly recommend you give it a watch. Hope you enjoyed. Don't forget to subscribe. I'll see you next time.